Hey, what's up, Eagles fans, and welcome to another episode of Eagles Latest right here on FanArch. I'm your host, Cory Nidoh. Well, we've got plenty to discuss this afternoon, and we are going to start with Kevin Patullo. The former offensive coordinator for the Philadelphia Eagles has reportedly accepted a new job with the Miami Dolphins as their passing game coordinator. Now, I think this is a great move for both Patullo and the Eagles. I thought it was going to be a major distraction next season if Kevin Patullo remained on the staff and worked under a new title in a new role. I just think that it was too far gone in terms of the outside perception that Kevin Patullo could handle a demotion and not get criticized, and the team not get criticized for keeping Patullo around because of his friendship with Nick Sirianni. There was a lot to be made that Sirianni bumped up his best friend on the staff in Patullo to be the offensive coordinator, and it obviously floundered terribly. I mean, the Eagles had one of the worst performing offenses in the NFL, and that just was unacceptable with how much money and how much talent they had on that side of the football. So Kevin Patullo gets a fresh start down in Miami. And I think it's for the best for him. Obviously, he dealt with a lot of scrutiny from the media, the fans. I know those few fans that were being idiots and threw rocks or eggs at his house in Jersey really did not make it look good, and they do not represent the entire fan base of the Philadelphia Eagles. But nonetheless, there certainly was unhappy fans throughout the season, and it seemed like the players were frustrated. Now, a lot of the players didn't necessarily call out Kevin Patullo publicly, but it does seem that there was frustration with how that offense was not performing, and now Kevin Patullo will get a new start down in Miami, which I find surprising as well because it seemed like it was kind of done behind closed doors. At least I didn't really see anything that was reported that he was interviewing with Miami or any other team for that matter, and I thought that was kind of telling at one point where I thought, wow, like no other NFL team wants this guy on this coaching staff, yet all the players rave about him. Obviously, Nick Sirianni gets along with him, but it does seem that Miami actually wants to, I don't want to say take a chance because he was pretty solid in his previous positions with the Eagles, but I think passing game coordinator might be where his bread and butter is. So Kevin Patullo is no longer on the Eagles staff. After they did not fire him, they did allow him to stay with the team, and they were going to find a new title and role. But Patullo has opted to head down to South Beach, and I do think that is a win-win for all involved. Now, moving on to Brandon Graham, the ageless wonder. Well, he wants to play another year. He went on his podcast yesterday and mentioned that if Howie Roseman gives him a call, he is ready to rock and roll. And if I'm the Eagles, I let Brandon Graham come back. I think that he means a lot to this team. He obviously means a ton to the city. And when it's all said and done, number 55 will be retired up in the rafters. He means more to this franchise than his stats. And I think he deserves to play another year. He played in 9 games last season after coming out of retirement. Didn't look terrible. He had 3 sacks. That was more than a good handful of defensive players in that front 7. And he played pretty well in the middle of that defensive line when they were dealing with the Jalen Carter injury, and he had to miss a few weeks, and the lack of production from rookie Ty Robinson. And BG stepped up, and that's the type of players that you need. He's a guy that can just find ways to win his one-on-ones. He's a guy that brings the trash talking. He loves to run his mouth, and that goes a long way for a team, especially in the NFL. You need guys that are chippy. You need guys that are confident, and you need guys that have experience. And Brandon Graham just doesn't want to hang it up yet. I mean, this is a guy that just seems like he's an ageless wonder. He's 37 years old. He'll be 38 in April. He's played in 215 career games. He has 79.5 sacks. And next season would mark year number 17, all with Philadelphia, after he started back in 2010. So if I'm the Eagles, give BG a call, guys, and let him suit up and let him continue to even mentor some of the younger players on that defense. I think it's just a really good solution. It would be a good decision, and it's going to be on the cheap, I would imagine. I can't believe Brandon Graham would be asking for a ton of money for a full season in 2026. So pretty exciting news there that Brandon Graham wants to come back. I think he's a player that still has some juice left. He still has some gas left in the tank, and obviously the fans adore him. So why not bring Brandon Graham back for one more season? Speaking of wanting to come back, or reportedly expected to come back, news came out yesterday that Lane Johnson is expected to play in the 2026 season. Now, if you remember, earlier in the week, even late last week, there's rumors and rumblings that Lane Johnson might not return because Jeff Stoutland left the team. Obviously, Landon Dickerson is still up in the air, but if these reports are true, coming from Adam Schefter of ESPN, obviously very reputable, and former Eagles running back LaShawn McCoy, he said on his Speak Easy podcast that he spoke with Lane Johnson and that he ain't going anywhere, according to LaShawn McCoy. Excuse me, I was mixing up Lane's name, Deshaun's name, and forming it all into one. But LaShawn McCoy said on his podcast here, quote, "I do expect that Lane Johnson will be back. He ain't going anywhere. I talked to him, and he ain't going nowhere." Now, Adam Schefter on 97.5 The Fanatic on the Kincaid and Salchunas show yesterday morning said that he does expect Lane Johnson to be back. He did mention that he heard the Landon Dickerson conversation on the potential retirement, and Schefter said he doesn't know how real it is or isn't, but he did say that he would be surprised if Johnson is not back, and he said, "I don't know as much about Landon Dickerson." So we'll see what happens. We did see a video of Lane Johnson lifting some heavy weights, and he's looking like he's trying to get back in shape. And it's really going to come down to that Liz Frank sprain that he suffered that forced him to miss a good chunk of the end of the season, because they are just such a tricky injury to come back from, to rehab from. And obviously, as an offensive lineman, obviously as any athlete, you need your feet. And that is certainly an injury that can cause some havoc, and it obviously did, forcing Lane Johnson to miss some significant time this past season. So I do think the Eagles still need to operate as if Lane Johnson and Landon Dickerson are not returning in the upcoming draft. I think they need to use their first two draft picks on offensive linemen. If not their first two, at least two of their top three. I do think that they need to reinforce that front five. We do know that Howie Roseman, Jeffrey Lurie, they love to build from the inside out, and if they want a sustainable and good offense with this new OC and Sean Mannion, they need to ensure that they've got some future pieces in place that already have really good skill sets, and there are some really good offensive linemen in this upcoming draft. So I know it's not sexy. I know a lot of teams and a lot of fans don't really, shouldn't say teams, a lot of fans don't like waiting for their pick on night one, and it's a 300-some pound lineman because you don't really see them in action all the time, right? Watching running backs, quarterbacks, wide receivers, cornerbacks, middle linebackers, those are the more exciting players to take, but you need to draft your necessities, and right now the Eagles seem to be in much need of new blood on the offensive line, whether or not both Lane Johnson and Landon Dickerson return for the upcoming season. So I do think it'll be interesting to see who the Eagles target. Obviously, Howie Roseman has had some really, really strong drafts over the last few years, and I expect that trend to continue, and I do expect that they aren't going to be resting on their laurels and not take at least an offensive lineman in the first three picks. But like I said, I do think they should take at least two, and then even maybe a third later on in the draft, maybe somebody that projects well, that just needs some fine-tuning, and they could kind of sharpen them up as well and have them sit out a year and learn from some of the best guys in the business like Elaine Johnson and Jordan Mailata. So that's my thought process there. Some good news all around for the Eagles after it seems like it's been a black cloud over this team, over the NovaCare complex ever since they got knocked out of the playoffs last month. But certain things are starting to fall into place. We talked about the coaching staff yesterday, and the coaching staff will not include Kevin Patullo. As we mentioned earlier in the show, he took a job with the Miami Dolphins. So with that said, that will put a bow on today's episode. I hope you enjoyed it. Please drop a like, drop a comment, and most importantly, subscribe to the channel. Certainly helps us out. And we will be back tomorrow to talk more birds. Thanks so much for tuning in.